Ladies and gentlemen, Season 2, Episode 8, The Rescue. This is a very strange episode. Let's go through this sequentially, shall we? Let's just do this. So they hunt down the good doctor from earlier, take his ship intact. There's an interesting little tidbit where there's the one pilot and there's the other pilot, right? Pilot A, we'll call him, is like, I'm not going to fight back. I don't have a death wish. And when they get to the standoff, he's like, look, I'm not with him, okay? We can work something out. So Pilot B actually shoots him. Okay, that's cool. Why didn't you shoot him when his gun was away? Like, there was a whole period where he had to do this, and he lost his hostage. Just shoot him. Anyways, the real reason is because plot. We need to have him give his speech. We need to get an insight into some of the people and some of the mentality of the individuals who support the Galactic Empire, because these kind of people exist in real life. And I quote, do you know how many millions died on those stations while the galaxy cheered? Destroying your planet was a small price to pay to rid the galaxy of terrorism. So anyways, yeah, no, we don't know how many. I mean, it's really messed up. Alderaan wasn't exactly a Tatooine, for lack of a better way to put that, right? Like, Tatooine certainly has a bunch of people on it, but Alderaan was a core world, a long-established core world. And you're probably thinking, what's the significance of that? Billions. Billions at a minimum. How many billion people do we have on this planet? We got room everywhere. Yeah, Alderaan was a big deal. It's one of the reasons why... Yeah, you know, imagine just... whoosh, and there's Switzerland. Yeah, rich history, no weapons. Let's not get into that. So they go to meet... Yeah, I did like how it actually singed his ear. That's actually a nice touch. And, of course, the guy is still injured later. So they go to meet Bo-Katan, and we have to get our mandatory... I don't know, like, fake drama scene? Like, this is straight out of a comic book. I'm sorry to complain. Which one? I did like that line. I hate to complain, but, like, you know what this is, right? Okay, so, I'm lore man, but I need to recruit hazardous materials, and that's just your superhero fight. So, yeah, and so we just gotta fight, right? Like, that's what it is. It's like, I go to recruit you. You're with me. I'm with you. You've worked with us before. Like, everyone is kind of on the same board, but we've got to fight, so we're needlessly antagonistic to each other. Get a quick fight in, show off your powers, show off my powers, and then someone says, enough! And it's always how it is. The reasonable one says, enough! We'll work with you. And then I'm like, okay, hazardous, and we shake hands, because now we're friends. It's such a common thing. I call it the comic book thing, because comic books have sold themselves... Yeah, Loki's scepter's over there. Comic books have always had this thing where they need to have the fights. The fight scenes are kind of one of the main points or selling points of comic books. I understand that. Action scenes are important. So they just kind of keep running into more and more and more issues trying to justify why character A and character B fight each other. So, yeah, we wanted to fight with Boba Fett, and that's why this is here. Here we are. I do like a little tidbit here. There's this bit where Bo-Katan's like kind of just being like, hey, whatever. And Mando just says they took the child. And Bo-Katan's face goes from this to this. Like, just... Now, of course she does. Everyone's had that exact same reaction in the last, like, 2 episodes, ever since they took him. But, like, yeah, no. I do like how it's just a quick and dirty... Oh. Okay, you're serious. Got it. I'll help you out. But I'm going to come down on this very hard. I'm going to be very significant and clear about this. I must have the Darksaber. I must have the throne. And I love this because this whole time Mando is just sitting there going, I don't care. I'm just here for the frickin' kid. What do you want? You can have Mandalore. I don't give a damn. He doesn't care. I'm busy. Let's go. It's just funny how hard Bo-Katan comes down on this, because he really does not give a crap. Yeah, She is almost assuredly projecting. However, I'm also pretty sure that at least part of this is set up for some future drama. Because, you know, the Darksaber thing, we'll come back to that. Because that's not here. We're not there yet. So, 3rd generation Dark Troopers, which are now droids. That is very funny to me. Let's follow the full path. All right. So we've got droid soldiers, but hang on, they're crap, so we're going to place them with clone troopers. Okay, they're the best fighting force the galaxy's ever seen, but you know what? They're kind of expensive. So let's go back down to, like, trash troopers. But you know what'd be better than trash troopers? Droid troopers. I know, Dark Troopers, but it is very funny. It is very funny to me. It's very, very expensive, very elitist, or not elitist, excuse me, elite droid troopers. Yeah, next they're gonna do clones again. Anyways, so yeah, they are better than B1s. We skipped a step, right? We went from the B1s up to like the supers or the Sentinels. And a lightsaber cuts them down without effort. Full circle. Sunrise, sunset. Let's clone the Emperor. That's a good idea. Anyway, sorry. I love all this because it's actually funny to me. It really is. I'm not even making fun. Okay, so they do the big thing, the big action sequence where they're trying to land. While this scene was going, I actually bothered to look up the Arquitin. Oh god, I can't remember the name. Arquitin. There we go. Excuse me, the Arquitin light cruiser. I knew it enough to type it by memory, and I just stumbled over the pronunciation of it. I was looking this thing up. It has a complement of 3 ties. I mention this because in this, they actually showcase that it has 6 ties on board. And you're probably thinking, aha, nitpick. No, actually, the only point I'm making here is that the overwhelming majority of creators don't give a crap about things like consistency or continuity, or the people who spend a lot of time and effort trying to make everything contiguous and make sense within itself. They just care about what makes for a good scene for the specific shot they're doing, right? Now, I will admit that irritates me. I'd be lying if I said that didn't irritate me. But it's understandable why they do it, because they just want to do a good episode, or they just want to do a good show. They don't care about the greater body of the work that they're working with, right? It does irritate me, though, because the counter-argument I've always had to that is, well, then, why are you bothering to work on something like Star Wars? I'm sorry, most of my irritation here actually comes from another franchise entirely, Star Trek. Over in Star Trek, a lot of writers would willingly and deliberately just go away and completely ignore pre-established stuff because screw you, right? Because they just wanted to do their story and they didn't care about the greater continuity. And so you have irritations like people beaming through shields, or ships having the wrong amount of armament, or like a couple of bird of preys being able to take a Galaxy-class heavy cruiser. Like, all that stuff is irritating because of the fact that the information exists, and if you did your homework, you could have written around that and made that part of it. Yeah, the Infinite Shuttles thing in Voyager, or the fact that the Galaxy-class heavy cruiser in TNG, which is a death machine, by the way, that's a freaking dreadnought, is treated like it's a cargo ship, you know? Now, what's interesting is I'm actually completely with you, Rex, because you know what would have made me actually cheer this section? Imagine if when they're getting their intel on the cruiser, one of them mentions, don't worry, it's only got 3 ties. And it's just a throwaway line in the background. Then they show up, and they're launching 6 ties. And you don't even have to call attention to it, just have it be there. Like, oh, okay, we can pick up on it. If you really want to lay it out in case you don't believe the audience is going to pick up on that, you could just have another thing where someone's just like, just 3 ties. And that's the reaction, right? It's just something like that. And there you go. Boom. No issues, no problem. And you see how little effort that took? That's sort of my overall point. It irritates me because these tiny little things don't really matter, but they're so easy to just smooth right over if someone bothered to do so, you know? It took me 10 seconds and a bit of Googling to find that information. Give me another, like, 5 minutes, I'll be able to actually find a scan of the actual document they printed out and sold that has that information on it, right? Yeah, they did this on Navarro. It's not like they can't do this kind of a thing. I'm sorry, this is a really weird nitpick. It just struck me, because this has been on my mind in general, and... well, Andor wasn't guilty of this. We talked about this, right? We talked about writer factor and how much it engages our trust in the creators of a show. And Andor had ridiculously high writer factor, especially because it would do exactly what I just suggested. It would do those tiny little detail things, which I would catch and be like, ah, oh, that's great. That's amazing that they showed that they did that there's a little line that makes so much sense. Do you remember frickin', oh god, Nemec? Nemec talks about how they're trying to encourage us to use Imperial tech and hardware. Do you remember how we talked for like 5 minutes about that one little, tiny little background lore bit there? I love those little details. Forgive me. I apologize. I'm not trying to say this episode is bad or this show is bad. It's just, it could be so much better. So they come in loud. Obviously, that was the plan from the beginning. We continue to show how the Stormtroopers are just here to be B1s. B12s? B1.5s? I don't know. They're crap, and they just smash through them. And of course, we know why that's there. It's there so that the main characters can have fun showing off how strong they are and how powerful they are. And it's a bit of a, it's setting the board for when the Dark Troopers show up, or at least that's what I thought was going to happen. They never really paid off on that, but still, I'm kind of with it. Yeah, exactly, Cashel. Just little details like that. You can do that. Where's this from? Oh, it's from people who fought off the Bo-Katan invaders. Huh? Don't need to draw attention to it. I'm getting off topic. So they start activating the Dark Troopers. They move very mechanically. They have very real armor, and they're very badass looking and acting. But they're also very stupid. You can tell that these are, I know they're 3rd gen Dark Troopers, but they're 1st gen droids. Because there's no intelligence here. In fact, this is probably the exact kind of thing that the Empire wants in general, is they want unthinking machines doing exactly what they're told, which if you've ever worked in programming ever, is actually a pretty bad thing. Let me use 2 specific examples. The one Dark Trooper manages to get through, right? So what's it do? Does it turn around and immediately go and open the gate for the rest of its fellows? No, of course not. It just goes to kill Mando. Then he goes ahead and lifts him up on the wall and starts pounding into his helmet, which of course isn't doing anything because that's Beskar. They're very menacing. I'm not trying to diminish these things. It's just you can see how these things would be extraordinarily terrifying if they had proper intelligence behind them. Instead, these are functionally bots. Elite bots, but bots nevertheless. That's probably why Mando's able to push back against these guys so well. You'll also notice they take a really long time to power up. So, that's cool too. Roger. I do like how as it's smashing his helmet into the wall, it is the wall that's giving way as he's pushing into it. Just smashing through there. He blows his Beskar missiles, which finally do something, by the way. Actually, push through the armor, which makes sense. And then Mando does something I've been saying people should do to him the entire show. Aim in between the armor. Gets in the neck and slices the head off. And okay, cool. Although my first thought was what was going to happen was that the trooper would be like, head chopped off, and immediately just go back to fighting him. And you're probably thinking, that's insane, and also very familiar sounding. Yeah, we actually saw that in episode 3, if you remember. The Magna droids had the ability to keep operating without their head sensors. Guess they can do that. Anyways. Yeah, also lights it on fire. Which, yeah. So he jettisons the guys out into space, and for just a second, I was curious about that, but then I realized that, no, that makes perfect sense. Remember, these guys have jetpacks, and this ship goes into Atmo, so yeah, that actually tracks completely, no questions there. So they start pushing their way through, kill a whole bunch of people. Death. And he finds Gideon, who has the Darksaber ready to go to threaten Grogu. He also has a line, assume I know everything, which is funny because he super doesn't, but of course, trying to establish control of the situation. We get a little bit of exposition about the Mandalorian throne and the nature of the Darksaber and how significant it is for those of you who weren't already aware of it. Good exposition, I have no complaints here. And, oh yes, you can go. I will let you go intact. All I want is his blood. And then he tries to do a sneak attack backstab. So, pro tip. If just igniting your weapon makes it go blust, and the weapon itself cannot even be moved without going blust, don't try to sneak attack backstab someone. They're gonna hear it coming. And lo and behold, yeah, that's exactly what friggin' happens here. So we have a fight scene. It's a decent little fight scene, but it's really quick and dirty, honestly. Mando the only thing the reason this lasts any time at all is I think they were just trying to show off what the Darksaber could do in action. Because yeah, Gideon, not a very good fighter. Very, very lazy, very simple, broad sweeps of a saber, and that's honestly kind of it. Just, but that makes sense. I'm not complaining. Mando should body him, and he does. So, he then, he gets beat. He's got the spear to his face. I like how Gideon recognizes in seconds, you're sparing my life. Well, this should be interesting. All right, I'm with that. So they go to the bridge. This is when the drama starts to come in a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and dissect this drama again, because it's stupid. Hear me out for just a second. So, first and foremost, Evo showed up. That's always a good thing when Evo shows up. Like, everything just gets a little bit better. He shows up, and, they explain... Yeah, I've actually been enjoying the episode up to this point quite a bit. Despite my extremely minor niggle about the TIE Fighter thing, this has been a solid episode. So, there's one last good line, which is when he's like, no, you don't understand. She has to defeat you in combat. And Mando's like, okay, I yielded. Here you go. And that actually got a legitimate laugh out of me. But he says it doesn't work that way. She confirms it doesn't work that way. Why? The problem is, the more you think about this, the less sense this sequence makes. What they're going for is fake drama. They want there to be this big thing about how... They want to have this big thing about Mando versus Bo-Katan. Okay. The problem here is that if all that needs to happen is for someone to yield, and that qualifies, but you still want to fight... Like, there has to be a fight and then a yield, then fight for 20 seconds, and then, okay, I yield. That's it. Here you go. Because remember, that's how he got it from Gideon. They fought for about 2 minutes, and then, here you go, yield. Yeah, just fake the fight and then yield it to her, right? Like, you could play this up. Okay, that's problem number one. Problem number two. Who here cares? Like, who in this room gives a crap? Because the only one who does is Bo-Katan herself. And, like, how is she... So, like, doesn't she just want the damn thing sufficiently to just take the damn thing? Do you want Mandalore back or not, woman? Keep in mind, a lot of Season 2 has been doing some really, really cool stuff with Mando himself being willing to push beyond the bounds of what he thought was mandated upon him, as he switches out more and more out of his cultist mindset and gets more into understanding his traditions and where they come from and why, right? So, why does she not have, like, a similar arc, or indeed the opposite arc, which could have led to a big conflict between the two? And then Mando's like, no, and then just yields, and then she takes it. Remember, the yielding has to work, because it already has. Literally already has. Even if you ignore the Gideon thing, the Darksaber was given willingly back in Rebels, and that does predate this, and that does count, so... Huh? Yeah, exactly, Hazardous. There's a disconnect here. But they could have at least had the big fight scene between Bo-Katan and Mando, and had this be a big action finale between two Mandalorians on the show named Mandalorian, but it could also have been an emotional thing, right? It could have been a thing where they fight, because you gotta have your action sequence. I understand that. I get it. It's a mandate. I understand what a checkbox is. But have the action sequence, have the two fight, shred the bridge a little bit, and then finally have him be like, you want this stupid thing? You want this stupid thing? Here, you win. I yield. And you can see her, like, struggling with it, and then he takes off his helmet. and glares at her in the face. I yield. Don't explain it. And have her process that and realize that and start to see where he's coming from. And you get it, right? Like, that's only one direction you could take this. You could take this in a lot of different directions. Instead, it's like, they don't really know where they're going with this. Because it's so bad. Like, this one scene actively drags the entire narrative down. I'm not even going to talk about the fact that, because there's another line I haven't talked about here. If yielding doesn't work, then who owns the Darksaber right now? Ah! You were right! I summoned the bots! If yielding doesn't work, who owns the Darksaber? This is a real question. Because it's not Gideon. Because nobody yielded to him, right? And it's not Mandalorian. It's not Jaren. Because he yielded to him, right? Like, this isn't yield, and also the saber was given away originally. So who the hell actually owns this damn thing? If that's the rule you're using, if it has to be to the death, who the hell owns this damn thing? Yeah, I was actually about to say, Maul might actually qualify as our legitimate owner of this thing. Yeah, that's another thing. Do the rules only apply to Mandalorians? Like, there's such an untangling skein here that they don't even really troll it. And yeah, Maul is actually dead as of this point in time. If you're seeing ad, it's because you're not a sub. I actually turn off ads as much as I can, but they don't let me turn them off completely. Don't worry, I don't get any money from that ad revenue. Literally nothing. Yeah, no, we've got some Harry Potter wand launcher. I was thinking of the same damn thing. It's like, huh? Who owns this damn thing? And more importantly, who gives a crap? And yeah, I know. I get it. That's from my perspective. Bo-Katan is the one who cares. But they don't really do anything with that. And of course they don't, because a scene which already sucks immediately turns around and has a second scene which sucks, which is the Dark Troopers coming back. So now the Dark Troopers show up, and he's like, "Mwahaha, Dark Troopers are here." Mwahaha. I was right about the jetpacks. Called that. So then we've got the build-up for the big final battle against multiple Dark Troopers. How will they possibly work their way out of this situation? How many of you have actually watched my Ruminations, the show stuff I used to do years and years and years ago? Many years ago. I don't think I've recorded an actual episode of a Trek thing for like 7 years at this point. Or maybe it's 5 years, wrong direction. Doesn't matter, because I used to say the same thing in all of them. Aw, I'm sorry, Evo. Give scritches to the dog for me. So, one of the things I used to say was, and this is where the episode loses me. Because the moment they say it's an X-Wing, you know what my first reaction was? Yes! Carson! I'm not joking. That was exactly what ran through my head. But then the X-Wing landed, and a dude in a cloak got out. I'm not sure what to add to this sequence, really. They spend a long... You know what? I actually do have something to say about it. It's Luke Deepfaker. Sorry, that's a good one. Yeah, the Force Ping. The Force Ping. I mean, everyone else can track this damn kid. Why can't he? I didn't like this. I'm just going to say that. I know some people like it. I know some people don't. I know that's Star Wars. I know we all get divisive. I have nothing against anybody who likes this sequence. You know me. But this whole sequence, I just kind of was slowly sliding into my chair as I was watching the whole sequence play out. And there's a lot of reasons why, but let me go ahead and focus in on some specific things. First of all, it takes way too long. They spend a huge swath of the episode on this gigantic-ass scene. that goes from him landing to fighting them, to them watching him fight on the cams, to him fighting, to them watching him fight on the cams, to him fighting, to him slicing through. Then we have our second door tension sequence in a few minutes, by the way. Then he comes out, and then he starts absolutely chipper shredding his way through the Dark Troopers and follows through on the hallway scene. I believe this is actually our second of the hallway scenes. Since Rogue One was the first one, this is the second one. The one we see in Season 7. I'm almost positive Season 7 came out after this. I could be wrong. Please tell me, by the way, Hazardous. I would love to know, for anybody who really likes this scene, I would love to know why. And I don't mean that like as an attack. I'm legitimately curious. I'd love to know what you like about it. Anybody watching this on the YouTube side of things, please share. He did have a hallway scene like his father before him. I'll give you that. He does completely hijack the climax of the story by just destroying everything. The one thing I do like about all of this is it does help to emphasize the difference in tiering. We actually talked about this back in Andor. You remember when they were on the prison? We talked about how if Anakin or Obi-Wan showed up, they would just go... Well, Luke shows up and just goes... I mean, that's exactly what we were talking about, right? Yeah, Luke is tier number... He is the second highest tier thing walking around the setting right now. So, yeah. I do like how Gideon has, for the first time in the entire show, actually demonstrates fear. So, we have the hallway scene. We have the tension of the door opening scene. I didn't like the hallway scene, honestly. I much preferred the mall one. Oh, haha, Bionic Punk. Fair enough. Gideon grabs the gun, aims for Bo first, the child second, and himself third. That was actually a surprisingly interesting character point. And then we see Luke deepfaker, and I hate to use that phrase again, but it's just... Yeah, is this some random? There we go. But it's... bad. Like, it looks bad. You can literally see where the face is like... You know, have you ever seen... some AI-generated deepfakey stuff, and you know how, like, the skin moves wrong and the mouth moves? Like, you look like you're looking at a fluid image in a way that's hard to put into words immediately, because that's exactly the vibe I got out of this. Just... It looked... Oh, God, his voice is AI. Oh, my God. I know we just talked about Rosario Dawson, but she did solid, you know? She did some good stuff. Yeah, Davy Jones. Oh, man. You want to talk about some good CGI? Davy Jones. Seriously. I've actually seen several behind the scenes of exactly all of the effort they put into designing Davy Jones. It's a lot. And it helps that the actor, Bill Nye, I believe, is a great actor who threw a lot of physicality into the role to help with that. Anyway, so we've got the deepfake. Let's just move on from that. It looks bad. Moving on. I think it looks bad. Excuse me. I think it looks bad. I don't think Luke should be here. I don't like how it completely diminishes the climax of the scene. I don't like how it takes way too long. I also really don't like how long it takes. I know I just said that. I know I literally just said how long this takes is a problem, but you have to understand, this is a huge percentage of the episode is devoted towards Luke showing up and then doing his thing. Like, even when he finally, like, I'm skipping over a tidbit on purpose, but then we have, like, a whole other section of he's going down the hallway and it's walking up, and then that's it, the end, credits. I skipped over one tidbit because there's exactly one part of this outfit that actually works for me. Grogu reaches up to touch his helmet, right? Jaren pulls off his helmet. Then Grogu reaches up to touch his face. That worked. That was exactly as powerful as that should have been. And it ties into what I was speculating about earlier with regards to Bo-Katan. That was a good farewell. I will unabashedly say that got me right in the feels. And then we're back to waiting for a while. Yeah, as spoilers, this is a fake goodbye. I told you, they're not getting rid of Baby Yoda. He's too valuable He's a merchandising opportunity. There's no way. Then we have a post-credits. During the post-credits, of course there's a post-credits. There has to be a post-credits. There's a mandate. Let's see if this... So in my notes, I actually said, let's see if this one's worth a damn or not. So we see the Odd Gamorreans, the bored slave girl, Bib Fortuna, who has really let himself go, by the way. And then Boba just shows up and straight up kills Bib Fortuna and sits down on his throne. And those of you who know me know I was actually pretty excited about the premise of the Book of Boba Fett. But then it literally does a title drop and says, Book of Boba Fett, coming December 2021. It's in the episode. It's in the actual core reel. No, it was. They literally posed for the camera. Boba sits on the chair, and she, like, poses right next to him. And they just pose for the camera. Picture that for a second in universe, what they're doing. Like, what are they doing? There's no one alive in the room. They need to, like... Oh, I'm aware, Trehex, yeah. There's going to be repeals, and there's actually other cases that there's currently live. But yes, that is a true thing. Yeah, thumbs up for the camera. So, okay. Let's rate this, and then let's talk about the show as a whole, shall we? And then we're going to spoil a few things. I know some people are going to really hate me for the rating I already kind of want to give this episode. Green. Oh, no, we're not going down to black. No. Nothing in Mandalorian is Lamentation territory. Excellent, Mr. Ed. You may commence with Operation Devastation. There is some good stuff in this episode. Absolutely. My knee-jerk thought, the thought I had before I hit record, was green. I'm sorry. Like, there's some good action sequences, there's some good character bits, and the individual final farewell was really, really good. The unnecessary fight between the two heroes was just, okay, whatever. The usage of the Dark Troopers was good. I actually liked how they used the Dark Troopers. Gideon was an idiot, but actually it kind of makes sense, so I'm kind of with that. And then Luke shows up and completely steals the scene. I'm actually curious. Hang on. I actually closed the tab. Give me 1 second. No, go away. Sorry, give me 1 second, please. Yeah, I'm actually curious how long we spent on Luke. Yeah, no, we're the Black Pillar of Death. I love how you put that. We're gonna have a Black Pillar of Death. Okay, so there's where they take the room, and there's the X-Wing. Okay, so that's at that. Oh my god, it's 10 minutes! It's 10 minutes! In a 40-minute episode. Oh my god, it's a quarter of the episode is Luke. No, it is, I just checked. Okay, let me use my specific metrics. So from the moment the X-Wing shows up, okay? The X-Wing shows up at 29 minutes and 50 seconds, okay? Then we scooch forward to the final farewell, which is, oh, hang on. 30, oh, I'm sorry, it's actually 9 minutes, excuse me. It's 38 minutes and 52 seconds. It's actually like 8 minutes and 59 seconds, but whatever. It's 9 minutes. It's 9 minutes. That's actually longer than I thought it was, and I thought it took forever. 2 of those are... Well, hang on. If you really want to go down into it. Let's see how long the farewell sequence is. Let's pull... Okay, so there's the farewell sequence. Starts at... Here, someone write this down, please. 35:39. Which goes to 37:07. So that's... I've already forgotten the number. Somebody wrote that down. Okay, 35:39. So that's... and then 37:07. So that's... a minute and 28 seconds is the farewell scene. So that's very... Let's just round that a little bit. That's 7.5 minutes. 7.5 minutes of Luke. What's really funny is this, even as we keep shaving this down with more and more precision, that's still way more than I thought it was. I thought I was going to be like, oh, it's like 4 minutes, you know. 7.5 minutes in a 38-ish minute episode. Anyways, all I'm trying to say is that okay, yeah, no, outros, you know me. You know me. Outros. I don't care about nostalgia, I never have. I'm gonna give it a green, I'm sorry. The more I think about this, the more I process that, I think that's a green. I'm gonna get flamed for that. I'm already getting flamed for that. It's okay, it's okay. I don't expect many people to agree with me. Wow. That also gives us our final spread. So let's talk about the show. So we've got our final pie chart for Mandalorian there. The final pie chart is fascinating to look at. Look at that. Here, let me get this on screen. Give me a second. Yeah, in about a year, I'm going to get a lot of hate messages. Oh, speaking of which, for those of you who want to leave a hate comment, oh my god, you're right. It's not Luke. It's Luke. Okay, so hang on. Did anybody guess for Mando? Did anybody guess at all? Looks like... oh, hang on. So Shadow Machine guessed 60. Simple Gamer guessed 54. Okay. Actually guessed 70. That looks like that. So it looks like it's Simple Gamer. Looks like Simple Gamer wins. Sorry, let me write that down really quick before I do anything else. Actually, yes, I do, Fife. You have to label things when it comes to sources in OBS, and one of them, that was just labeled haters. So Songs of 6, LS Principle 2, and Wizard with a Gun. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Congrats, Simple Gamer. Remember, you can start guessing about Cyberpunk Edge Runners. The max score for that's going to be 60. We can also lock in our score there. So, sorry, let me pull this up on camera. That's actually going to take me another second. Let's go ahead and just do this. There we go. Okay, so there's the season, right there. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, it's right in the middle. Mandalorian. Good, great, less than good, good, great, good, less than good, great, 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 good, excellent, less than good. That's actually really solid. I'm sorry. I cannot believe I'm having to defend a show that is scoring this well, but that is a very, very good thing. Like these, look at Clone Wars here for a second. Look at the spread on Clone Wars, okay? Now that's a decent spread, and Clone Wars did have some purples, but over here we have the Mandalorian. There's our pie chart. Now really look at that for a second. The best way to look at these kind of things is to understand that you want, when you're making a work of fiction, you want everything to be yellow or higher, is really what that boils down to. I've talked about this before. And if you think about that, what that means is that about 82% of this show is in the target area. Look at the huge slice of orange there. Look at the gigantic slice of yellow. A few greens and one solid red in the middle. That is a really good ratio. And to further emphasize this a little bit, I keep like another chart down here. There's Mandalorian right there, and you could just see the solid quality there. Ignore Andor. Hang on, let me just ignore, and there we go. So now that Andor's off the screen, we're good. You can see exactly how good that quality is. And that's the point I'm trying to say. The thing that I'm most impressed with about about Mandalorian, is how consistently good it is. I mean that. Like, I know that sounds strange, considering, you know, that nonsense over there. But I mean it. Most shows are more like, well, honestly, like Clone Wars over here. Do you see that, Clone Wars? Most shows, even good shows, are more of a rainbow. You see a lot more gradient quality. Even some of my favorite shows of all time are like, you know, blues, greens, yellows, oranges, reds, and purples. And that's just the spread. But Mando has retained a solid amount of quality, all things considered. Speaking of which, for those of you wondering over here, for those of you not actually paying attention to the sheet itself, as you can see, we have our final score, which is 53. Again, Simple Gamer has that. And we also see that it got a 55%, which is the closest thing to a final score that it can get. And that's solid. Yeah, Babylon 5 would absolutely have a rainbow spread, and I love Bab 5. Speaking of, the next thing we're going to cover is Cyberpunk, right there in the middle. But let's not talk about that right now. We'll cover that tomorrow. Let's talk about the show as a whole. I already kind of talked about the quality of the show. But I think what I like most about this is it's generally good Star Wars television. Do I want more? Yes. Do I want better? Yes. Do I think they could have done better? Yes. But you see in that is the thing that this is still a thumbs up. This is still something that was a great, maybe great's the wrong word. It was a good launching point. It did exactly what it was supposed to. It launched the Star Wars television verse. And spread itself all over the place in doing so, but managed it regardless. The show as a whole. Unlike, would I rewatch it? I would rewatch parts of it, I think. There are individual episodes which I'm just kind of like, on. But there are parts of this show I will absolutely rewatch, hopefully someday, with that amount of time. You know, the VHS list, right? We can't ignore the Book of Boba Fett. Watch me! Yeah, we don't get Andor without Mandalorian. We don't get... I'm trying to think what the other really good show is, because I'm suddenly floundering. It's not Obi-Wan. That one was... and it's not... Book was its own thing. Mando Season 3 is... no, it's fine, Bionic. It's fine. Grogu is just back with Mando for no explained reason. Also, he has a new ship, which is never explained. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, Mando was a very solid basis line for so much of what comes up ahead. And I do think that as of Season 2, something I talked about in Season 1 has really come full circle. That Djarin has shifted into being a character. Obviously, you know what I was talking about, right? Like how he was more of a template. He was more of a position. He was the man with no face. Or excuse me, the man with no name. Excuse me. He was literally the man with no face. But he was the man with no name. And so there just wasn't much for them. He was there to hinge the rest of the show around him. But in Season 2, he started being a character. He started being aware of presentation and personal drama and doubts and questioning himself and interacting with other people on a personal level and blah, 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 blah. So he started being more of a character, and that's awesome. I find myself wondering if he's going to take off his helmet even more in Season 3. Have I already watched Obi-Wan? In totality, no. I have not reviewed it, no, and I probably never will, to be completely honest with you. I sincerely doubt that's worth anybody's time. Ejecting Luke scene from the context. So it's just... so all of a sudden, just Luke shows up. It's the Luke Skywalker show. And it's a mission. He's coming in. It's a video game. It's always a video game. Comes in. It starts... was it shot well? No. Did it show well what it was trying to show? Yes. Would I have enjoyed it outside the context? No. As I was trying to point out earlier, regardless of my personal opinion, apparently I failed at getting this across. Regardless of my personal opinion on the matter, I don't think it was well executed. I think, like I said, it took entirely too long. There were way too many long shots about someone. I have that saved still as this. Long shots of just him walking down a hallway or showing action at a distance and then cutting to someone reaction it and then cutting to him actually doing it and then having him go to another hallway and then going through a third hallway. I mentioned that 7 minutes thing because it kind of helps to emphasize how much the scene was dragging. And then when he finally shows up, obviously I have issues with the deep fake thing, which I've already mentioned. You did, Hazardous. I do get your point. I do like how they built it up. I do. I imagine that the way they did it so, and this is going to sound strange, obviously, was for people who are not Star Wars fans. The moment they said the X-Wing showed up, I was like, well, I thought it was Carson, actually. But then, like, 10, 15 seconds later, I was like, oh, it's Luke. You know, because that makes sense. But I imagine a lot of people didn't process that until they got to about the third or so of the reveal thing. What did it do, Claes? Oh, actually, maybe don't spoil it. Maybe don't spoil it. At least not get to spoiler section. But yeah, I feel like... I also feel like repeating the hallway scene was not a great idea. I've actually already given my comments on that because we've already seen the hallway scene that came after this. But as always, it's always down to execution and what they do with said execution. And I feel like it was just a little bit too much Rogue One again, as opposed to Luke's hallway scene. Doing his own thing for the hallway scene would have worked better for me. This is completely off the top of my head, but you know, one of the things he could have done? So, you know, elevator's coming up, ding, and then the door doesn't open. And the droids are just, you know, sitting there waiting for the shot. And then all of a sudden, all the droids are just slammed into one of the walls. And then smashed into the other one. And then smashed into the first one. And then they just kind of crumble to the ground. Door slowly opens. Luke walks out very calmly, of course. A couple of the droids are still moving. No, they're not. Then they're not moving anymore. Right, they did do that with Groot. I wasn't intending to reference Groot there, I swear. I was actually just thinking how Luke would approach this situation, because the way he pushes through the hallway is very Vader, which is sort of the problem, isn't it? But no, that makes sense, Hazardous. Anyways, that's my overall thoughts on that. Let's talk about the future of Star Wars really briefly, because this is the last Star Wars show we're covering for the foreseeable future. What do we got? So we've got Obi-Wan, we've got Ahsoka, we've got Book of Boba Fett. I feel like I'm missing one. You know, that has since come out. Obviously, we had Clone Wars Season 7. Oh yeah, Bad Batch. I'm going to skip over Bad Batch, because that's mostly tied to the Clone Wars era. Acolyte. That's the other one. That's the other one I was thinking of. Acolyte. Oh yeah, and Mando Season 3. When I first... I'm going to be honest with you now that you've already thrown all your tomatoes at me and killed me with sticks. When I walked into The Mandalorian, I kind of gave a couple of hints about this. I was not enthused about it. I approached the property with what I can only refer to as a bit of dread. And a lot of that came from Star Wars shows that have come out after The Mandalorian. Star Wars show that launched off of The Mandalorian, right? You know, the issues with the Obi-Wan show and with the Ahsoka show. Like, I kind of don't want to watch the Ahsoka show in full totality with analysis mode on, because that's just... I'm good, you know? No, I didn't know exactly Hazardous. This is actually kind of nice, and it's one of the reasons I've been so enjoying it. And yeah, but like, so I should probably mention that I actually already know everything that happens in Mandalorian Season 3, at least as an outline perspective. I also know what happens in Book of Boba Fett from an outline perspective. I also know everything in Obi-Wan, and I know everything in Acolyte, and I know everything in Ahsoka, because none of those were likely to get covered anytime soon, so I decided 2 weeks ago to just go ahead and do some research, read up on them. It's one of the reasons I knew some of the details about Book of Boba Fett that I didn't realize actually started in Mandalorian. So... of course Hazardous, absolutely. Yeah, Mando Season 3's ending is... Like, I know we're kind of in the spoilers territory here, but like... Why is Jaren even in Mando Season 3? Wouldn't it have been better to just focus on Bo-Katan? It's her show anyways. I do like how they're willing to take the camera away from the principal characters for a bit. That's actually a good thing. I do like that. When they go to follow Dr. I don't know his name on Coruscant. And we find out a little bit about how the New Republic is treating ex-Imperials who've turned flag. Pershing, thank you. Yeah, just focus on Bo. It really is her show anyways. Season 3 is just her show anyways. Just focus on it. Just focus on the Mandalorians and their retaking of Mandalore. There's a couple of strange choices there, and there's definitely some interesting things. And then there's the Acolyte. And the Acolyte is a really weird one. Acolyte obviously has nothing to do with this. It's set during the High Republic. They did some interesting world building and what I consider to be some of the best lightsaber fights I've seen in a long time. And I know that's going to sound strange because one of the biggest complaints I hear about Acolyte is how terrible the lightsaber fights are. So I think we're just going to run into another Last Jedi problem there, and I don't have anything else to add to that. But I like how they were willing to be creative. Yeah, it had cortosis fights. It had, like, using the helmet to shut off the lightsaber in the middle of it. And just the very nature of how they fought. It was very visceral. It was different styles of different people fighting in different ways, and that was cool. I liked that. That was branching. Yeah, they were very raw fights, exactly. The dialogue was bad. Is the nicest possible way I can say that. Blade Traval, that was awful. But yeah, the dialogue was very episode 1-y, episode 2-y. Yeah, very prequel-y. Exactly. I don't know if that was done on purpose or that's just how the writing landed out. And some of the plot is... And can I just say, it's a damn shame what they did to, I don't know her name, but Carrie-Anne Moss's character. Because she was kind of the perfect Jedi. I'm not actually joking on any level. The way she acted, the way she held herself, her body language, her facial language, she was acting like a Jedi, good and bad. And it's one of the best portrayals I've seen of it in a long time. I was actually really down for that, and then that was such a damn shame because they had so much stuff here. No, I'm actually unaware of what's going on with Ki-Adi-Mundi. Yeah, the Jedi they killed in the first episode. What were you thinking? So, Acolyte certainly has a lot of, like, yeah, but then it has a lot of, huh? Which probably sounds familiar. Oh, his age was changed. Who cares? I guess the more expensive, the more valid question is why. So that's Acolyte. We talked about Acolyte. Let's talk about Ahsoka really quick. I wanted to like Ahsoka so much. The thing I liked most was the guy who unfortunately died. No, the real life, the actor. He was good. He was interesting. He was fascinating. It was a different take on like the kind of Sith mentality we've seen before. He was cool. Ahsoka herself was, Ezra was weird. Like, just a little off. Like, I don't mean off. I mean, like, he's fine, but, like, the way he acts and the way they act, you'd think they would have some kind of more impact, and instead it's just, And I really didn't like Thrawn. You know what? I like that Caroline was a fallen Jedi is a better way to take it. I did love the Anakin scene. The Anakin scene in Ahsoka is great. 100%. And that's, like, Thrawn felt off. That's the nicest way I could put that. The fact that they decided to have this in another galaxy because space whales... I know Star Wars has always had a little bit of mystical and has had a little bit of, you know, just go with it. But, what? What? As I've said many, many times, what is going to be... what's going to be too much for suspension of disbelief is always going to vary from individual, right? Every individual person. And so whether that works for you or works for me or works for them or works for whoever, that's going to vary, right? For me, Ahsoka pushed beyond the bounds of believability. It just pushed past that boundary to the point where I'm just sitting here going, huh? Yeah, no, just set it in the unknown regions. I mean, first of all, it's called the unknown regions for a second, or the unexplored regions. Like, it's right there. Have you seen even the more official canon maps, the AU maps, make it very clear, like, here's the galaxy, here's this half of the galaxy, and then there's the unknown regions over here. They've changed why it's the unknown regions. Back in the EU, it was just because they hadn't gotten there yet. In the AU, it's because of the fact, well, also the Chiss has something to do with that. In the AU, it's because of the fact that literally hyperspace works differently over there. But either way, but no, another galaxy. Yeah, no, agreed, Doom Rider. It's just a lot of confusing choices. Nothing terrible, just a lot of, huh? Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan. Let me ask you something. I want a real answer, if you don't mind. Because, like, both of the shows I just mentioned are good with bad or bad with good, depending on how you think of it, right? Definitely some good stuff with some flaws, and that's normal for a lot of shows. Obi-Wan is probably the first show I'd look at and say, what in God's name were you doing? What were you doing with that show? You had such a great premise. A show following Obi-Wan Kenobi in between the events of Episode 3, or Miraculously Rebels, and A New Hope. There you go. There's your premise. Done. And it was supposed to be a movie, too. It's so... Like it even fails on execution. Yeah, you've got Ewan McGregor, who's an even better actor than he used to be. And you've got, like... You've got a lot you can do with that. And they totally didn't. Execution was bad, too. Have I mentioned already the checkpoint scene? That's just one example, right off the top of my head, of several scenes which just make me go, what? And yeah, then we had the Inquisitor who was trying to get close to Vader because she was one of the younglings that Anakin didn't kill. Younglings. It's always lings. There's Zerglings everywhere in this setting. Oh yeah, the infiltration scene. I feel like Obi-Wan is something I'd love to study someday if I ever had time to figure out what the hell was going on behind the scenes, because you can't tell me something wasn't going on behind the scenes. I know it was shunted down from movie to television, but I have no idea like the specifics of what was going on and why. And we might not even know now. A lot of behind the scenes information takes years to slowly come out over time. So we might not even have access to all the information yet about exactly what happened. So that was Obi-Wan. Oh, dude. Obi-Wan with proper budget and backing? That could have been awesome. Let's see, what was the other one? So we had Acolyte, we had Ahsoka, we had Obi-Wan. I'm missing one again. Yeah, the Jennifer Lean stuff we only found out about like 5 years ago. That's crazy how recent that is. Bad Batch, which is Clone Wars. Visions, which I actually haven't seen. Boba Fett, thank you. That's the other one. Book of Boba Fett, which is Mandalorian Season 2.5. How many of you have seen that show? More to the point, how many of you have seen the chase scene in that show? Now, I've seen chunks of Book of Boba Fett because it was one of the shows that interested me the most. And I do actually agree that they did some good stuff with the Tuskens. In fact, I kind of hinted at that when we were going back through Season 2, Episode 1, The Marshal, of this very show. Yeah, the chase scene that was mocked when the episode came out, and for good reason. It's one of those scenes. They're chasing and walking scene on speeders going through. I'm not sure what the city is, but one of the Mosses, probably Mos Eisley. The funny thing is, I think if they leaned into it more and didn't try to play it seriously, it's Mos Espa, thank you, then it might have actually worked better if they just made it ridiculous. If they just made it stupid. I might have actually been more on board with it. Instead, I just found myself, because I rewatched it just a couple days ago, and I'm rewatching it just going, and the best part was that was just a casual viewing. I guarantee you, if you actually sat me down, I sat down and started going through the episode, you know, second by second, minute by minute, I would just shred that thing. It's not like there isn't good stuff in Boba Fett. There is. We already talked about that. But, like, why did Boba Fett end up the way it was? I love the concept of the show. I said it when it was announced. Give me my Talon Card show. Right? I actually said that on camera. So I have video evidence of the fact that I said that when it launched. And you're probably thinking, well, isn't it the Talon Card show? Yeah, exactly. Like, I wonder what was going on behind the scenes. I know it's the second time I've said that. Because we know that Boba Fett was kind of being tied into the Mandoverse as a whole. We also know that Mando just kind of showed up to take over the show for like 2 whole episodes. Whether it's good or bad, that's probably down to a matter of opinion at that point. I don't know what else to add to that, actually. Well, I agree he doesn't quite fit as the type of character Mike Romano, but maybe make him into a character? I know, Clace. Like, this is so confusing to me more than anything else. I know that... Okay, so let's talk about some facts we do know. One of the things we do know is that some idiots, and let's call them what they are, actually assumed that when Disney Plus came out, it would eat Netflix alive, and they would be able to launch Disney Plus and take over the entire streaming verse. They were wrong. And in fact, Disney Plus didn't do particularly nearly as well as everybody thought it would, and in fact actually lost money at several points in time. To anybody who studies economics, this makes absolutely perfect sense, because if you know this, Netflix has had that problem at several times in its history, and they're already the dominant power when it comes to streaming services. So, yeah, a lot of executives were like, yeah, let's get in on streaming. So that is a valid point. Excuse me, Clace, that is a valid point. So even more push was being put behind Disney Plus than it otherwise was, because of the fact that the pandemic hit. And so all of a sudden, a whole bunch of people are being struck inside and forced to, what do we call it? There was a term for it. It was like sit in place or something like that. Walker. And all of a sudden, it's like, And the worst part, though, was like, I don't know about with regards to Boba Fett itself, or even Obi-Wan. What I do know is that there are several shows, Shelter in Place, that was it, thank you. There were several shows which had very obvious health and safety mandates to be made. Some shows and some movies didn't actually get made, or got made much slower than they would be, because there were so many problems people had with having a couple hundred people crammed into what is effectively a warehouse for long periods of time. Duh. You know? It's the same reason the convention scene basically shut down for like a year and a half. You remember that? It makes a weird degree of sense as you're looking at it, but I find myself wondering if nobody thought for 5 seconds about how messed up this whole thing was going to be from word go. And what's really funny is you'd think, oh, well, this is the perfect time to really jump into the animation sector, right? Because you can actually do a lot of animation with a bunch of people who are isolated from each other. No, you have to come into the office. You're coming into the office, and you're working here right next to each other. Sorry, I'm branching a little bit. But the point is, this was a mess in real life when all this stuff was being made. And I can only speculate. I can only speculate on the specifics. I'm sorry, this is a loud song. I was just enjoying the music. I apologize. I can only speculate on how much of this had anything to do with anything. I can only speculate on why it is exactly that some of these shows stumbled more than walked, right? Because with both Obi-Wan and Boba Fett, I'm going to point to those 2 shows in specific as the biggest failures, my opinion, of the showing that we've gotten. In both cases, they had a great premise and just fumbled it, right? I actually have a theory. This is pure theory, and I do not have anything to back this at all other than just speculation. But I think that one of the biggest reasons why Mando was brought in late, Boba Fett, in order to turn the show into, Mando Season 2.5, was because of all of the issues going on at the time. And they wanted to have that security blanket. I'm not saying it was selling badly. I'm not saying it was polling badly. I'm saying that the people in charge of making these decisions started getting scared. And they're like, okay, hold up. Let's pull the lever. Bring the popular characters back in, and we get Grogu back in, and we get Jaren back in. All right, let's go. Get this stuff back in here. Oh, I'm with you, Claes. I absolutely feel you on that, speaking even personally. And, I don't even want to get down the Star Wars hotel rabbit hole. That's a rabbit hole you could go down right there. I want to talk about overpriced garbage. That's another thing. Jean Favreau, who was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, he was the mainliner at this point, right? For Star Wars in general. So, I'm pretty sure I was... Yeah, okay, he was. I'm right. And yeah, the job of a mainliner is to keep all those kind of projects cohesive and coherent with each other, right? That's why we call it that. You're the through line for all these things, so you're the mainliner for all of these different things. And yeah, you can't tell me he wasn't feeling the strain having to be in charge of all these different shows simultaneously, because a lot of these were being made at the same time. It's just interesting to think about. Now, I think Filoni is now the showrunner, at least for the Mandoverse. I'm not sure about the other stuff, because now you notice they're trying to start doing the movies again. We'll see where that goes. They've said that before, if you remember. The final thoughts I have is one of the most irritating things I hear decried is morons saying that Star Wars is dead. Now, we've actually talked about this so much that this has come up on my show for like 5 different franchises across the better part of like 10 years. It may be dead for you or to you, and that's fine. No judgment. If you look at thing and you say, "Nah, I'm good with it," I understand that completely. I'll give a specific example. Star Trek Online is dead to me because the game's been on a massive downward spiral for literal years, and it just got bought out by a freaking mobile game developer. I'm good, right? We're good. But that's fine. That's me saying that for me, from my perspective, not from the perspective of saying it's dead. And I know that sounds like a minor distinction, but it's important because saying Star Wars is dead is stupid. Star Wars is fine. But now I know what you're thinking. In the back of your head, you're thinking, well, yeah, but that's bypassed the question. What do you think about Star Wars lore? So I've already kind of mentioned my opinion on the other shows in very, very brief. Some good, some bad, nothing that really engaged me, right? Ahsoka didn't engage me. Acolyte didn't really have anything going for me. Obi-Wan, I just don't want to touch, and Book of Boba Fett can go straight to hell. And I always feel like I'm missing one here. So, all of that, I'm good, in all honesty. And then I watched Andor. And Andor engaged me on such a level and to such an extent that I was actually shocked by it. Some of you remember that I was blown away by the level of quality and the level of core power and thematic significance and excellent characterization, excellent world building that Andor had. And I was just like, whoa. And then I saw Mandalorian, and I liked it. I know it doesn't look like it when you look at that at a glance, but no, I liked Mando. I'm down. So, for me personally, I'm actually more interested in Star Wars than I was about a week ago before covering these 2 shows. I'm not even talking about Clone Wars Season 7, which I was overall pretty in favor of. And, of course, I actually do kind of want to see Bad Batch someday, because I still haven't seen... I mentioned how I've kind of spoiled a lot of this stuff for me. I haven't seen anything about Bad Batch. That one's on purpose, because I want to watch that one someday. I want to cover that show someday. So that's over there. Different category, right? Different category. So, yes, absolutely. And I am very curious what's going to happen going forwards, because even amongst the shows I'm not a big fan of, like Book of Boba Fett or Obi-Wan, we still had some quality stuff here and there. And while I absolutely have issues with the sequel trilogy, and I've never been quiet about that, I do think that Star Wars as a whole is doing some fun and interesting stuff, especially since I cannot be the only one who's noticed that there's been a really big push lately to try and develop more of the High Republic era. About 100 years passed, nice big gap of time there, different culture, different timeline, different aesthetic. I mean, right? So, I am interested. I also have gotten a lot of ideas for our wars. But there's one big thing about our wars we need to discuss. I'm not going to do it here. I don't want to bore you because I know none of you care about the rewrite projects. But I need to bring up a talking point in the writer's room of the R Wars Discord, because Andor and Mandalorian both kind of put a thought into my head. Oh, actually, in Clone Wars Season 7, all three of these shows put a thought into my head that I've been chewing on. I'll tell you right now, it has to do with Palpatine and his position and point in the setting. Mandalorian would make such a perfect video game. The show's already a video game. It would be such a perfect video game. Either way, I think that's actually all I have to say for the moment. I'm going to go and chop off. I've got some paperwork to do. I've got some cleanup to do. I also have to figure out dinner for the family. Right. So, yeah, tomorrow we're starting Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I expect to not enjoy it. I have no idea how good it is, but my expectation is I'm going to walk in and I'm not going to be into it at all. In addition to the fact that it's anime, I've also been warned by several people who have watched it who know me who say that I'm not going to enjoy the subject matter. So that's where I'm at on that one. How do I feel about this show's fit into the universe in light of where the sequel trilogy demands where things go? Real answer, truthful honesty. That was a weird mixing of words there. I don't think Mandalorian fits the sequel trilogy at all. Now, I know there's a big gap there, 24 years, I believe. But I still very, very much think that the sequel trilogy continues to be off in a bubble, for lack of a better way to put it. I've actually talked about this before. The sequel trilogy just doesn't fit with a lot of the other things. The other things do fit with each other. A lot of the things over here, with like Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian thing, even Ahsoka in some ways, a lot of them are all building into a totally different thing, right? Yeah, Mandalorian fits with the Thrawn trilogy better than the sequel trilogy, and I stand by that. And it's strange. You can't tell me it's on accident. You can't tell me they're doing this anything other than deliberately. I don't know if they've got an end game there, if they're building up to something, because, yeah, they're not going to retcon the films. There's no way. As I've said before, even if it was my call, I wouldn't make that call. And I think creatively that might be the right call, but there's no way they would make that call. Because even creatively, it's a horrifically dangerous and difficult thing to do. Especially a lot of people really like the sequel trilogy. That would just be a slap in their faces, and that's just going to make even more unrest. So, yeah, it's too divisive to just pull the plug on it. So what do you do with it? You've given me this question. I've actually given my answer before. I think they should just move forward. Like a sufficient amount of time. Century, give or take. 2-3 generations, something like that. Just move things forward. And then all of that is now history. All of it is just history. And now we can start doing some other stuff, right? Or move backwards, which is what the High Republic is. You get it. Yeah, the only one alive would be Grogu. Which he would. Hey, Scott Skywalker, I haven't seen you in a minute. I'm glad you're enjoying the Streamination stuff. But yeah, give it some time. Give it some time. Just move on. We'll establish a whole new status quo up here. Whole new state of the galaxy. Good guys, bad guys in between. Aesthetics. You get it. That's my take. And that's what I would do. There is something they might do that I hope to God they don't. So, Ahsoka went to another galaxy. Like it's already done that. That's already a thing. That's already canon. Yeah, you get where I'm going with this. You get immediately where I'm going with this. Because a lot of you have played Mass Effect Andromeda. Now, I think that would suck, personally. I do not think that would be the correct course of action. But I do think there's one other thing that I personally think would be worse, but actually might be the smarter idea. And I know that sounds strange, but that's how that works. Because you know I hate multiverses, right? The latter, Scott Skywalker. See, here's the thing. First of all, I don't like multiverse stories. I never have. There's a whole bunch of reasons, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I just don't like that kind of stuff. However, it is worth noting that there is some validity to doing alternate timelines, alternate branching pathways and stuff like that. And it's really, really common right now. I mean, have you seen Deadpool and Wolverine 3? It's a really common thing and has been for several years now to keep doing these kind of branching ideas and stuff. And there is the World Between Worlds, which of course added time travel. Yeah, for those of you who don't remember, time travel exists in Star Wars now. But there's no nice way to say this. It isn't that far of a gap to say that the World Between Worlds could lead into another dimension instead of just another time on the same timeline, or another timeline. It would be really, really, really easy for them to go that direction with that. I don't know if that's the right call. I would have to sit down and have a really long discussion with a lot of people in a boring meeting room to really think about if that's the right call or not. Like I said, I'm not a fan. I've already said that. But I would be willing to have that discussion because it's something that should be on the table. It's something that should be discussed. And see what they want to do with that. Oh, and you know Ahsoka would be the one leading the charge. Of course she would. I mean, she's the only time traveler in Star Wars right now that we know of. But that's what I was talking about earlier, Triaxia. They're never going to do that. They're never going to eject the sequel trilogy. It is now baggage they have to deal with. Just like I was talking about in Arcane, actually. Not to spoil Arcane, but at a certain point in Arcane's history, the genie was out of the bottle. There's no putting it back in. So, we'll see. We'll see. A lot of nervousness, a lot of curiosity. I have to admit, the final thing I wanted to say, and this is so pathetic, and I guarantee you I'm going to get some comments that are going to say, oh, you're just an elitist dickhole. Until about 2 weeks ago, I had no interest in Star Wars stuff going forwards. I know that sounds like a weird way to put that, but like, I'm not like, oh, Star Wars is dead to me, or I hate Star Wars. I just didn't care. I bet a lot of you know what that kind of apathy feels like when it comes to a franchise, right? It's just, no, I'm good. I didn't care about Star Wars. I was far more interested in doing my own take on Star Wars, to be quite honest with you. I was very interested in pushing our wars. In fact, it's pretty much the next big thing that I'm working on as soon as I finish the RFFs. So, apathy is death. But after watching Mandalorian, and after watching Andor, and after watching Clone Wars Season 7, we'll see where they go with it. I'm actually curious now. I know they're making some movies. I know they're making some shows. We'll see. I am going to go and cut off. Like I said, I've got a lot of paperwork to do, and I got to catch up and get ready for Cyberpunk tomorrow. Roughly 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, starting with Season 1, Episode 1, Let You Down.